Alright, so this is my Brickless Monarch Reasoning deck. This deck is a combination of two concepts. One, using reasoning to reduce the brickness and increase the speed of the deck, henceforth the Brickless Monarch Reasoning concept, right? The name of the deck. Because I've been seeing many people making some joke about bricking, which I'm assuming means a lot of dead draws and not enough consistency. So obviously I wanted to fix that. I wanted to come up with a way that could, help. So I was testing, and reasoning has been helping with that. So I've been using it, because some people play different stuff. Like Italy is not bad, it's a good card, but even with that, people are bricking, so I'm assuming that it's good but not good enough, right? So I'm looking for something less expensive, right? Italy's ain't cheap. Then you gotta get the freaking Blue Ranger, right? In case you don't know what it is. Right there. Might not have, the money for that. And then of course this and Italy takes up 6 slots in the deck if you're playing 3-ups. While reasoning only takes 3 slots, which leaves you space for other options, right? So reasoning is essentially to replace the whole Italy and Blue Ranger card. Moving on, everybody likes to play whatever they want to play, and let me bring up the typical Monarch structure deck cards, right? The ones that people like to play, which is Erebus, which I hope I said it right. And where's the light one? Oh, there it is. And Ether? Why couldn't it just be Ether? Alright, anyway. It's probably pronounced Ether, but it looks like Ether. Anyway, I'll say Ether. So you got Ether and Erebus. And to each their own. I'm not using them. They're good cards. I've tested them, so it's not like I didn't take the time to test them. I tested them out when they were available on YUGIOH Pro, and I tested out pretty much every card that is for Monarchs, just to see what works best for me. But the strategy I like the most and the cards I like the most is Kaius the Mega Monarch and Zaborg the Mega Monarch. Those are two of the ones that work best for me for my play style, and I like them. They're both nice little 28s. I'm not saying the other ones ain't strong. The other ones are clearly 28 as well, but these are really interesting in what they can do. I like Kaius Mega Monarch's banishing ability. That's very useful. I want to get banished stuff, especially when it comes to pendulums. I want to banish pendulum cards, right? And anything else I want to get rid of, so that he comes handy for that. And then the board, the Mega Monarch. This is my deck's main strategy. It's useful against pendulum decks because a lot of pendulum cards go into the extra deck, and I have a tendency of popping back row. In most other decks I tend to have a considerable amount of back row hate, mainly because pendulum is a thing. You gotta try to make it. They don't have scales, but not just that, is that when you kill a pendulum monster, they go into the extra deck. So the extra deck is filling up with pendulum monsters, right? And it is only going to take one moment for your opponent to play 2 monsters in the pendulum zones and drop the nuts on you, right? Swarm the field and go for game. So that can suck, right? So to prevent that scenario from happening, emptying out the extra deck is very useful of pendulum monsters. But also is just using the Zaborg Mega Monarch ability is also useful for getting rid of extra deck monsters from any deck that's based off of Exceed Summoning, you know, like rank 4 decks, and you know, any deck that exceeds, any deck that synchros, any deck that ritual summon, I mean not ritual, fusion summons. You know, this effect is really useful, especially when you use it more than once. You can empty out your opponent's entire extra deck. Alright, so the idea obviously is you summon the board, make a Monarch. The way you can do it, especially first turn, because that's the time you want to do it the most, right, is obviously summoning Idea. I really hate the fact they changed the name. Why couldn't it just be Idea or Ideal, right? Anyway, summon the light, Heaven Knight, right? Bring out Ideals, the Underworld Squire, and then of course he gives you the ability to summon again, and then you tribute them to monsters to summon Zaborg Mega Monarch. Use the Zaborg Mega Monarch's effect. Since you did use a light monster as part of his tribute, you could target himself, since you know he is a monster, right? With his own effect, he's an 8-star light monster. Destroy him. Use his ability to send 8 cards from your extra deck to the graveyard. And then after you do that, you send 8 cards from your opponent's graveyard. Not graveyard. Your opponent's extra deck to the graveyard, you send from your extra deck to the graveyard. Make sure I said that right. And that's how you know, obviously empty out their extra deck. So this is a strategy that I like to use, because 99% of decks currently right now in the meta and out there, even in casual play or competitive play, of course, is extra deck heavy, except maybe Monarch decks, right? So this card might not be that good in the mirror match, right? But it's good against everything else, which is what you really want it for. You want it to hurt everything else, and then when in a mirror match, you just go crazy, right? Do what you do. And of course you can side deck. I don't side deck. I'm more of an extra deck type of player anyway. Since I don't side deck, I do need an extra deck, so I definitely want to make sure I have extra deck cards that I can use if I need to, but obviously in this deck I don't have to. You can see this deck is 43 cards as opposed to 40. It was 40, but I wanted more cards because I want to have more cards than my opponent. You know, I want to have more options than my opponent, especially since I'm using Reasoning to speed up the deck. More cards the better, so that way I don't deck out. Of course, that's one thing, and faster than my opponent. You know, you want your opponent to deck out faster than you. You want him to run out of resources before you do, and then of course, just having more cards is better. You know what I mean? Math-wise, percentage. Of course, you got a draw engine with Pantheism of the Monarchs. You know, you got your search card for your spells and traps, right? For your Monarch spells and traps, which is Tenacity. So you get you got your draw, and of course you got card D. For those who like Max C, to each their own. I'm currently using card D mainly because it's guaranteed 2 cards. Maxi, I have to wait until my opponent makes a play in order for me to potentially plus, and then they could always stop and all this other stuff, which is not a bad thing, but at the same time, some people tend to push, especially if they think you don't have anything or they can see you have nothing. They'll push for game, and Maxi would have been pointless. Drawing a lot of cards and not being able to use them is pointless, right? But drawing 2 cards that you can potentially use or will use is very useful, especially if you card D and draw 2 cards, right? And now you have 6 cards in your hand, so you have to discard, or you have 7 cards in your hand, you have to discard until you only have 6. You know, as an example, you have 8 cards. You get the idea. You have a lot of cards in your hands now. You have to discard. You know what I mean? It'd be worth it because at least you discard some stuff that you want to discard. Typically, I want to get Prime Monarch into the graveyard. Like, that's really important to get that to the graveyard. Get Tenacity to the graveyard because you can use it to banish for the effect of Prime Monarch. Of course, I use Pantheism of the Monarchs with original Monarchs. I can draw 2 cards and then set up my graveyard for my 2400 defense wall plus tribute fodder. me being me, since I like to kind of recycle stuff, here's another little suggestion. Most people won't do it, but that's their decision. I'll put this over here for future use. But I'm a fan of Necroface, especially this deck does a considerable amount of banishing, so I definitely want to be able to recycle it. Of course, you could play this as a 1-of, since you have 3 months reincarnations. You can play as a 1-of, 2-of, to each their own. I'll probably play as a 2-of, of course. Double my chances of getting it when I need it to recycle whatever I couldn't get back with idea, because there's only so many times you can use this card, right? But also, if I banish all 3 of these, I need a way to, you know, put them back, right? But anyway, moving on to Kuraz, the Light Monarch. It's a good card. I like it. I hate that I can't attack, of course. Who doesn't? Even if you don't use the effect, you still can't attack. That's gay. If his effect gets negated, you can't attack, which is good. So if somebody negates it with skill drain or something, you could at least attack. But it's a good monster. It helps you break scales. Granted, your opponent pluses out of it, but it helps you break scales if need be. Helps you get rid of any problematic back row, especially if you do a combo like you summon YUGIOH Tribute for Kuraz, and if you want, you could pop Kuraz and your opponent's what was it called? Well, anything that's problematic, anything that can definitely hurt you. Like the band plays on, it can hurt you in some cases when you're actually special summoning, especially through the effect of reasoning. Band plays on can be problematic. If your opponent has Vanny's Emptiness and you want to play this, then obviously you can do your little Kuraz combo to get rid of the emptiness, plus a card. Then you can play your reasoning and hopefully get one of your big beaters onto the field and do what you do. Alright, I don't know why that's happening. Anyway, it's a good card. If you summon it by reasoning, of course, you can activate its effect. You tribute to summon it, activate its effect, plus you pop up to 2 cards, and then the controllers of the controllers of those cards that were destroyed, you get to draw a card, in case you didn't know his effect, but you should. YUGIOH has the effect that when it's summoned, whether normal or special, it gives you an extra normal summon. So if you summon it by the effect of reason, for example, you get an extra normal summon, so you can tribute, and you can even you can summon Kuraz, right? Tribute Kuraz and summon it, pop 2 cards, play your opponent controls, and you draw 2 cards as an example, right? And then since you still have an extra normal summon, since you only normal summon once already, use your extra normal summon to summon a second copy of Kuraz and pop 2 more cards. Granted, your opponent will plus 4 cards, but if the 4 cards you got rid of were like crucial cards, key cards, or problematic cards, then plussing 4 ain't that big a deal, because those 4 cards more likely won't be the same 4 cards that were giving you problems, right? It's just 4 different cards you gotta deal with, right? And you'll take your chances, right? And he also has a graveyard effect that while he's in the graveyard, you can only during your turn, you can banish him. Once per turn, you can banish him to special summon a Monarch, to special summon a monster with attack 800 and 1000 defense from your graveyard, and the monster's on in defense mode. So obviously use it to bring back YUGIOH, the Heavenly Squire, onto the field, and of course you can use YUGIOH, the Heavenly Squire, for tribute fodder to tribute summon. Also, and let's go with YUGIOHs right quick. Then you can use, of course, we have 3 YUGIOHs. use Edia's effect when it goes from the field to the graveyard to add a remove from play spell or trap Monarch, Monarch, a remove from play spell or trap card, Monarch spell and trap card, right, to your hand. Obviously, a typical target would be Pantheism of the Monarchs. If need be, maybe a Tenacity or a Prime Monarch. Mainly this card and this card are the main things that I bring back from the Banish Zone. But sometimes I bring back the Monarch Stormforth, which is obviously useful because you can use it to tribute your opponent's monsters. Obviously, it's a great card. It's a quick play, so instantly useful, especially in a scenario where your opponent's like anti-spell fragrance or something like that, right? Trying to shut down your spell plays, and you're like, well, I'll chain this. Now I can tribute your monster, summon Kuros, now pop your